There is no death. It is only a transition to a different sphere of consciousness. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Talking to the Dead podcast. This week I wanted to briefly explain a concept that I've been asked to explain by my spirit guide Titan. She came to me last night and I think I only fully formed the impressions of what she was saying to me in my sleep on my way to work. And it's a very important concept, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can in the way that she explained it to me, and it's called spirit time. Now, we're all very familiar, she tells me, with the concept of space-time. The idea of space-time is something that was, I believe, made very prominent by Einstein, and it's been picked up by all these famous physicists, most recently probably by Stephen Hawking. And it was popularized in a lot of movies, and one particular that I like very much, Interstellar. It's the concept that time alters in space. It usually can be affected by gravity. So in the film Interstellar, you found that when people got very close to a very high gravity object like a black hole, time somehow was dilated. And in the end, when you were on this planet near this black hole, gravity was so strong that it could actually dilate time. The equivalent of 1 minute on that planet was 7 years back on Earth. This whole concept of being able to bend time or even to manipulate time is something that is very, very important to an understanding of physics. However, Titan tells me that this is a very similar principle to that we experience when we communicate with the spirit world. Now, you might think that what on earth are people doing all day long up there? How do they have the time to communicate with me? Surely they've got better things to do with their time. And equally, sometimes I have the thought that, these spirits, many of them have technically by our time scheme been dead for maybe hundreds of years or maybe thousands of years or maybe just a few years, but still they're right there now, and some people would say that they almost never age as far as we're concerned, and it only seems like it was yesterday that they were around. How does this work? Well, Titan explained that if you see it a little bit like the physics concept of time dilation, there is obviously no understanding of time where they are. I think we've mentioned that before. Time does not exist. Time is completely a construct of our human condition. It's something that we've invented in order to be able to measure, I suppose, the distance between birth and death. But when we're communicating with spirits, they obviously do not have that concept of time. So everything is completely timeless. Everything sort of happens, if you like, simultaneously. Their space-time is completely different from our own personal time. And that is why, in the same way as if you are too close to a black hole and the gravity affects things, you get this time dilation. If you're close to the spirit world, you'll also experience this time dilation, that almost time doesn't seem to exist anymore, and that things are endless in terms of when they happened. But that's not just backwards as well. It's also many spirits could be in what would be called our future time. So I just had to mention that for some reason. I think that may be important today, I'm not sure. But also Titan mentioned something else about what we call UFOs, or people who come from other dimensions. How does that work as well? Apparently it's exactly the same principle. The beings that people have seen or have had communication with, or they've seen their craft, or all these sightings of UFOs, generally tend to be two things, it was explained to me. They are either beings that have been already on Earth for many, many hundreds of years. But again, you don't listen to the hundreds of years and think hundreds of years of our time. It's their time that's important. They could have been there in their time for minutes, but it appears to us that they may have been here for hundreds of years. And it's just the same concept with the dilation of time, that we may say to somebody, oh my God, look how fast that UFO moved. I've heard stories of, that were in Congress just the other day. They've seen these tic-tac shaped UFOs, and they've been picked up by US Navy pilots moving at incredible speeds, speeds that we cannot comprehend. Well, that's only because we're seeing it in terms of a bit like speeding up a film in a camera or pushing the fast forward button. They're moving at a speed that is relative to what they're used to. But to us, everything is on super fast because of the time dilation effect. And the other thing that Titan mentioned to me, that if you would make contact with a being from another dimension or another part of the interstellar environment, it would be incredibly interesting to obviously find out from them just how long ago they left their point of origin. From our point of view, they probably would have taken millions of light years to get here. Or that's if they're traveling. If they're interdimensional, they can actually move instantaneously millions and millions of kilometers just by making time shrink. So the time that it would be required to travel those distances is almost nothing, because they have that technology that enables them to shrink time to a few seconds that would be, in fact, millions of years. It's an incredible concept that, of course, we on Earth don't really fully understand yet. Now, it's only been mentioned, I think, by Titan because she wants me to explain that to you, that it's the same with the spirit world. If I speak to someone who could be living out their life in some spiritual realm, and they could have been passed away for hundreds of years, from their point of view, it's as much as yesterday. It could be minutes. It doesn't matter. And we should probably not get so hung up about it and thinking about, my God, what about time? How do they exist in a time that's similar to us? They don't. So that's spirit time. I hope that explanation wasn't too confusing. So before I started the podcast, I did my usual protection rituals, as I call them, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to close my eyes and think about things for a while and see exactly what's going on. So I'll say hello to my spirit guide or anybody else who's there. I invite you to communicate with me. Okay, so, somebody's just popped in, and so what is your name? And he said his name is Sam, and when did you die, Sam? Sam says he died 14 years ago. Now, I'm quite interested in what sort of things that Sam did. So what did you do in your life, Sam? And Sam actually said that he was a taxi driver. And Sam, can you describe your experience of death to me? Sam was in an accident in his taxi, and he collided with other vehicles, and there was a huge fire, and he's telling me that he actually was burned to death. So Sam, do you feel love or hate towards anyone or anything? And if so, why? He's actually very, very angry with his family that he left behind. He had a brother particularly. He was very upset that he felt that his brother had defrauded him. And I believe that when Sam died, he's telling me that he knows that his brother stole all his money and took charge of his assets because Sam didn't leave a will. And he obviously trusted his brother, and he thought that his brother would look after things. But he's clearly seen from where he is now that his brother didn't look after things at all well. And he's also telling me that he's very distressed because his brother stole everything, and even stole money that should have gone to his wife and to his children. Are there things that you regret, Sam? Well, immediately he says, of course, he regrets that he didn't have a proper last will and testament. He's showing me painting. Apparently he used to love painting. He used to love doing oil painting. And he said he was not particularly wonderful at it, but he was okay. But he just spent so much of his time trying to earn a living, running his taxi, trying to bring money home to his family, that he neglected his own abilities and his own enjoyment in painting. And one of the biggest regrets, he says, is that he just didn't do enough painting. And he's also saying, I just didn't do enough for myself. So what advice do you have for living people, Sam? And he's saying that his biggest advice is that you must never give up everything for your family and your friends and for people around you. You've got to keep things to yourself. There's so much more to life than just earning a living and looking after your family and providing a living. It's also the fun. It's the learning. And he says that he so wished that he could have done more painting. And he really would love, if anything, just to tell people, just do what you love and spend time doing what you love. Don't give up everything just because you feel you haven't got the time, or you feel it's superfluous or it's not achieving some income. Do things just because you love them and really enjoy doing it and spend time on it. Sam, how do you see the world and its challenges today from the other side? I think Sam is trying to translate his thoughts to me, and the thinking that I'm getting is that it's related to the last subject of, do things that you enjoy. But he's also saying that it's so important that you do things for other people and get that joy in helping other people. And not doing things for money necessarily, but doing things because you want to help people and you want to make people who haven't perhaps got what you've got have a better life. Sam, is it true that before we were born, we chose what we want to learn and experience? Sam is saying that it's the case sometimes, but it wasn't necessarily the case with this life that he chose as a taxi driver. He feels that sometimes spirits will decide to have a predestined life. On the other hand, others are not. There's a whole raft of people who apparently really just enjoy the randomness of human existence and just choose to have a life that really had no predestination at all, no plan whatsoever, and just to learn from whatever happens. He's also just mentioned, because I was already thinking of the next question, that is it true that after we die, we meet with a spirit guide to evaluate our life choices? I mean, he was already answering that question before I even asked it. He thinks it's really very important for me to mention that at the point that we die, we shed all the memories really of our previous life, because it all goes back, if you like, to a central part, which joins together with all the other lives and all the other experiences that we've had. And, it's something that enables us to learn and progress. And yes, we evaluate our life choices, but we also learn what mistakes we made and things that we have to correct. And he actually wants to talk about the people who actually don't finish their life, because he said obviously he didn't finish his life. He didn't really either mean to die in a car crash and to be burned to death. But he says he's really no different from people who commit suicide or end their lives. Anyone who's involved in a serious accident and die, or people who, for whatever reason, have not died the way that they either planned or it was an accident. He says that takes a lot of adjustment, and quite often there is a period where you are in a sort of an educational environment in the whatever you want to call it, the hereafter. And in that particular dimension, there are a bunch of people who will help you go through the experiences you had leading up to that tragic death or suicide, and talk you through it in a sort of a counselling sort of way. But also you get the chance, if you like, to complete your journey, and you can say, okay, this is what I'll do. I will be reborn again, and I will set up similar circumstances and I will come up with the same issues, but there may be a tweak to it that will enable me to change the outcome. So I won't actually die at that particular moment or feel that I have to end my life. It'll enable me to see an alternate future, so I can live a further life and learn from mistakes, or perhaps I suppose he's telling me if he was in this car crash, maybe things will be slightly different. He would set out at a different time, or he would have avoided a certain road. And equally with people who are tragically suicidal, many people, and I think we came across this in a previous episode with the doctor, he didn't really mean to kill himself. He took an overdose, but I think he probably meant it more of a cry for help rather than actually trying to end his life at that moment. So yeah, he might learn the lesson that, I shouldn't take that. And I should try to overcome all the issues that I faced. Sounds to me like it's an awful lot harder to go through that than it is for me just to reiterate what they're telling me. Is there any message you'd like to pass through to me, to someone who's still alive? And yes, he's saying that, yes, he only died, I think, 14 years ago. And again, it's a bit like the last episode. I don't know how anyone is ever going to hear this, because yes, I think many people are listening to the podcast, many thousands of people are listening to this podcast, but the chances of perhaps anyone related to Sam hearing this podcast and hearing this message are pretty small. But he wants me to say it anyway, because you never know, and he wants me to pass on his love and his admiration to his wife and children, who've had to live through extremely difficult circumstances since he died. And he wants them to know that all's fine, and that, that sense that there is no death, and that one day we'll all be together and able to talk about what has happened in a different sort of fashion. And lastly, Sam, is there anyone else with you who would like to pass a message through to me? No, there doesn't seem to be. He's just saying the word over and over again. He's saying priorities, priorities. Well, thank you for coming over to speak to me, Sam. So, is there anybody else who would like to come through and talk to me right now? I'm getting the name Paloma. And so Paloma, that is your name? Yeah, apparently. So, and when did you die, Paloma? Paloma is giving me the very strong impression, and I'm getting a headache just thinking about it, that something happened to her head, and something very painful, almost like a headache, but much worse than that. Yeah, I think Paloma is, I think definitely a woman, and she appears to have been struck by a metal rod and it's gone into her head. I think that's how she died. And she remembers most definitely the impact of this metal rod, and she remembers the tremendous pain. But then she obviously died shortly after. Paloma, how would you describe the death experience? Now I'm getting a very strong impression. Paloma, I think, was connected to the church. I think she's showing me almost the uniform of a nun, and I can see blood on the white habit that the nun wore. I think she was in a monastery, yeah. And it seems to me that this monastery was somehow invaded, and the attackers came and killed many people in the monastery and destroyed the buildings. And this must have been a long time ago. I'm getting a feeling that this must have been hundreds of years ago. Paloma, do you feel love or hate towards anyone or anything now? And if so, why? Paloma's actually indicating that's a very silly question, because where she is now, she has no feeling of hate or love or even indifference. It's just, this is something again that happened to her. And happened to a lot of people in her last life, and she, I think, is more of the opinion that it's an absolute tragedy that she and many who are living a very spiritual life and a life that wasn't hurting anyone and was there to be showing goodness. And she's showing me all the charitable work that she used to do, helping starving children and sick people. I'm seeing her now. I'm being shown that she was walking along the streets of what must be almost a medieval city, and she's giving bread and food from a basket to people in the streets. So she wants me to show that she was a very generous person who was doing a lot of good charitable things. So, and she feels that, yes, that's the real sadness, is that even though you do charitable things, there's still people who want to kill you and to attack you and to destroy what you have. Are there any things that you regret, Paloma? Well, Paloma said this very clearly to me, that she actually was under religious orders, and therefore she had a vow of celibacy. But there was a young man who used to help working in their kitchens in this monastery that she was in, or the nunnery. And she was not that old. I think she must have been in her 20s, a young woman. And she really had deep feelings for this young man who I think used to bring in food from outside to the kitchens, or help them in some way prepare the food, or work in the kitchen. But this young man was someone that she had such strong feelings for, but obviously she was not allowed to have these feelings. And she has such regret that the religious orders seem to ban the connection between people in a religious order from having any form of marital relations or sexual relationships or really close friendships with people of the opposite sex, which she says is completely stupid and totally not what is supposed to happen in life. And I think her regret is that in a way she fell for this lie. She's saying that in order to to worship the God and the Christ figures that she was tied to, she had to give up that side of her life entirely. She says it's a complete nonsense and quite the opposite to what is intended for us. Paloma, what advice would you have for living people here? Yeah, I think Paloma is just showing me again her charitable works and the things that she's done. And she feels that is, again, something so important that we should be doing more of in our life. These are choices that we can make and things that are so good for us and so good for other people. And she says it's just really important that we never stop being charitable to people, that we try to help people, even if it's for no reward, and to give that portion of what we can afford to give away to people who cannot afford to have it. Paloma, after you died, did you meet with a spirit guide or other people, or the soulmates, if you like, and evaluate your life choices and what you're going to do? Paloma is showing me now probably something in her reality, and it resembles a school. And she's telling me that this is where a lot of people choose to go to after leaving life. And they go to this basically like a hall of learning where they can learn new things and they can learn new activities, almost like a school, and master different subjects. And then she says you can put those things that you've learned to use in your next reincarnation. So I'm asking now, well, so you have to almost decide at that point, if you've got a particular interest in something, that the next life you're going to be able to pass that information into the human realm. Is that right, Paloma? And she's saying, yes, that is actually a lot of the point of it all. And it's similar, I suppose, to what I've had in previous episodes, where you have that ability to have access to all the learning and everything that's ever been and ever will be created and and written about and invented. And there's so much, obviously, that you can do, but it's, again, part of what she's trying to say, that you use your life to try to make things better. And she's saying, no matter how your life may appear to be not particularly productive or not particularly good, you are still making a phenomenal change in people's lives. Now, funny enough, she actually just mentioned Adolf Hitler. That came into my mind, and I'd be interested, Paloma, why would you feel that someone like Adolf Hitler could have had a useful life? And she's just saying to me that we mustn't see it in terms of just the evil that this man did. We should see it in terms of the things that he did that perhaps wouldn't have seen to be an obvious result of what he did do. And she's wanting me to show that there was tremendous love that was created because of the evil that he perpetuated. That as bad as the person was, it brought out a lot of goodness in people, probably in reaction to the bad and the terrible things that he did. So he said that, she's saying that's another person I may want to talk to, the person who perhaps did choose to reincarnate and become Adolf Hitler. But he said, I would probably get the same answer she's saying, is that the choices that were made, were made for a reason. And a group of people would have decided to be part of that whole process. But it was not about destroying everything. It was also equally about enriching the human experience and changing things for the better. I must say, Paloma, I struggle to see how you could feel that Adolf Hitler could have improved things for the better. But she is really adamant that I shouldn't see it just always in terms of the evil and the destruction. You have to see things as being a positive change and things that had helped people as well. And I suppose, yes, she's saying to me, now look at where we are living in this day and age. We've lived she's saying in a European state which hasn't seen war for generations, and that is largely to do with the fact that we had such an evil man who'd caused such terrible problems. And had we not had that, perhaps we might have been having more vicious wars every 10 years or so. So yes, I suppose I can see what you're saying, Paloma. So Paloma, I think I've taken quite a lot of your time, but is there any message you'd like to pass through to me or to someone still alive, or is there anybody else who would like to speak to me? And Paloma is showing me now a choir, a church choir, I think, and it's a beautiful sight of people, choristers who are singing, and I can almost hear the music. It's a beautiful sight, and I think she's again trying to show me that music is something that is really important, and that messages of love and hope passed through music can be wonderful for us. That's really nice, Paloma, and thank you for coming over to speak to me. So I think we have time for maybe one more. So is there anyone who would like to communicate with me? Okay, well, I'm feeling a very strong presence, and this name is coming to me. His name, or the name, is Avril. Avril wants to come through. And he's actually explaining to me that he is not someone, again, who's lived a human existence. He is someone who he calls a collective consciousness. I've got this feeling, Avril, if I could ask you, would you be called an angel, or would you be called a demon, or what are you? And he's actually saying to me that he doesn't mind if I call him a demon. Now that's interesting, Avril. So you obviously weren't alive, so there's no point me asking you about that. But can you tell me, what is a demon? And well, he's actually saying a demon is no different from any other consciousness. He's a collection of memories. He's a collection of people's consciousness. He believes that all humans and everyone involved in the spirit world, they create thoughts, and these thoughts, yes, they create a reality, but every thought that people have, good and bad, is sent out there and can manifest itself as a reality somewhere. And people have bad thoughts, and people have obviously good thoughts. And he says that he's a particular consciousness, a particular individual, an entity that almost soaks up the negative thoughts that people have. And yes, it's you could say, he says, that this is what people might call evil, but he says he's not an evil person. He doesn't generally want to cause anyone harm, but he says in a way you've just got to pass that message through to people that when you have negative thoughts, or if you do negative things, or if you harm people, or if you think about harming people, you're creating a huge amount of what you could call negative energy. And these feelings and these emotions, if you like, he says, almost coagulate where he is into a real life consciousness. And it ends up soaking up all this negativity. And if you like, this is what you might want to call a demon. So maybe I just break off from the script a bit, Avril. So if you are a demon, then can I ask, what is the point? Are you in service to some evil lord or something? How does it all work? And he says no. He says he's just like everything else in existence, in reality. He is just the pure and the pure thought form of people's anxiousness and negative emotions. And he says that, yes, he has that ability to influence people's thoughts, as much as people who are having negative thought have that ability to feed into him and allow him, if you like, I'm probably putting the words here because he doesn't mean to make him stronger. He's not in the business of being strong. He's also really wanting to say that being a negative influence in existence is equally very important. It's a balance between goodness and badness. And there is nothing wrong with it. It's almost, he's saying, is necessary to know what is bad in order to be able to recognize what is good. Everything, he says, couldn't just be, it couldn't just be like this idea that people have of heaven, of church music playing and angels swaying around and everything all clean and nice and everyone on their knees. He says, it's really not like that. He said there are some people there, he says, that he knows that are doing that, and some people have created that if you like, that churchy reality, because that's what they're comfortable with. But equally, there's some people who are not like that and actually far more enjoy a negative reality where things are not so positive. And he's there also to be part of that, as well as sort of influencing people in our dimension. So, Avril, I'm more of this interest here that, what would be the benefit to humans having a negative influence? Why would that be of any use to me? He says that it's very interesting how if you would see life as just goodness, and everybody did things just to be good and just to help each other, and everything as you perhaps would see in a Judeo-Christian environment. He said if that was everything that had happened, he said then there would be no life. There would be no purpose to things. He says there has to be equally the negative and the uncomfortable things, and the things that we would perhaps call not quite as evil, but certainly not particularly good. He said there's no basis in religion for this. This is nothing to do with the devil, and there's nothing to do with hell. And he's just saying to me there is no such thing as hell. But there is this consciousness. There are many people like him. And if you want, he says, you could call that hell. If you want to call it hell, you can call the the collective consciousness of all this negative stuff. You could call that hell if you wanted to, but it's not a bad thing. It's something that somebody has to do. He feels that he's doing some useful stuff by being a sponge for negative emotion. He says that it's also used to draw out all the negative emotion from humans. And they're doing a great service because it enables space to be made for good things to happen. So yes, he's just saying it's a positive, negative thing. For everything positive, there is also the negative, and he represents the negative, and he's very proud of it. He's not ashamed about what he's doing at all. He's showing me that, if you like, all the negative things that we perceive as negative on our plane, such as people who murder people, or people who injure people, people who do awful things to people, violent things to people, rapists. He says all of that emotion is not in existence before these people were born, really. That they grow up as children, perfectly normal children. They have no viciousness in their mind at all. But eventually, again, because of the way they've chosen to live their lives, or because of circumstances, or the randomness of things, bad things happen. And he says that he's part of that process because he allows people to tap into negative thoughts and negative energy, but equally he's there to also soak up the bad negative things that can happen. I'm interested in Avril, whether, from being a negative spirit, whether you can actually then change and become a good spirit or exhibit goodness. And he says, well, of course you can. He said, but that's not the point again. He says that he's chosen to be this particular way because he wants to have that experience. And he feels that it's very important that all the things that he has been able to take from people and from his experience, as we may see it as negative, he feels it's very important to put it out there and to have some effect on the way people live their lives. He's also saying that you've got to remember that some of the greatest people in human history have been negative people who've changed and have become positive. But he said they wouldn't have been the great people that they were or made those great transitions in their lives had they not been evil or bad in some way to start with. Well, that's an amazing end to this one. Well, thank you very much, Avril. I've really enjoyed talking to you.